Hello, my name is Adam Smith. I am the battalion chief for Moapa Fire District in the Moapa Station, which is Station 72. And today we are going to talk about response readiness. Depending on what department you work for, maybe full-time, part-time, combined, strictly volunteer, response readiness should be the same no matter which station you work for, which department you work for. But before we get into what it means to be response ready and how we should be response ready, I'll give you some of what my credentials are to let you know that I really do know what I'm talking about. So I've been an engineer with the Clark County Fire Department as a paid professional for the past year. Was a CCFD firefighter for 6 years. I've also been a volunteer AEMT firefighter for the Moapa Fire District for 5 years. I've been a battalion chief or an assistant chief for the Moapa Fire District for the last 4 years. I'm a certified instructor 1 and 2 and a fire officer 1 and 2 through the Nevada State Fire Marshal's Office. So that's me. That tells you that I might know what I'm talking about. We'll see. Let's figure out what comes up. So first and foremost, what does it mean to be response ready? Like I said, whether you're a full-time station, full-time firefighter, or you're a volunteer firefighter for a volunteer station, or you're combined, response ready should mean the same thing for every single fire department that we work for. But before we talk about what it means to be response ready, we have to determine what actually is an emergency. Because for any of you that have had EMT training, they tell you in the very first couple chapters of EMT training that just because it's not your emergency doesn't mean it's not your patient's emergency. Well, I feel that we should define what an emergency is before we actually define what it means to be response ready. So let's get into what an emergency actually is. So per the dictionary, an emergency is an incident, whether natural, technological, or human cause, that requires responsive action to protect life or property. I pulled that straight from the dictionary, not from an IFTA book. That's straight from the dictionary on the internet. Because as we know, everything we read on the internet is true. That's got to have some validity to it. So if we define an emergency as a responsive action to protect life or property, then what does it mean to be ready? So again, the definition of ready is a state of being fully prepared for something. What that something is, we don't know, but we need to be ready for it. Then response is a reaction to something. So to respond is to react. So to respond, we need to be ready to react. But how do we prepare to an emergency when we don't even know what that emergency is going to be? Well, that comes down to one simple fact, and that's training. Training is the best way we can be ready for any kind of emergency that we're going to run into. It also comes down to another important thing that we'll talk about later on more in this presentation. So now that we've defined what an actual emergency is, we can start to talk about what it means to be ready and have response readiness. But before we get further into that, I really want to ask all of you a question. And I want you to be honest in answering this question, because this question will help you define whether or not you are ready. And I stole this from Fit to Fight Fire. You'll see it here in just a second. But the question that you have to ask yourself before every single call, medical, traffic accidents, major traumas, fires, any kind of call, is would you want you rescuing you? It comes down to that. If you feel comfortable with the state that you're in, whether it be physically, mentally, emotionally, would you want you coming in to rescue you? And be honest about it. If it's no, then what can we do to change that? What do we need to change? If it's yes, great. What can we do to make that better? So the other part that I told you that I would tell you later on in this presentation comes right here. Mindset is the other half of the equation. Training and mindset. Training is what gets us ready to do the muscle memory parts of it, but it's the mindset we have to have in order to execute training at a high level. So in this slide right here, I've got a couple videos I stole from the internet that show you prepared versus unprepared. They are not related in any way whatsoever. The one doesn't go with the other, but it shows you two different versions of what someone looks like when they're prepared versus what someone or some people look like when they're unprepared or not well trained and don't have the appropriate mindset. So here's the first video that you can see, and let's see if we can get this to play. So this is a prepared firefighter.
Are you ready?
1, go. Thirty seconds.
Okay, so obviously he's done that a lot. Okay, he's well trained, he's well prepared. Now I'm pretty sure there's some of you that are like, oh, he cheated, he had his mask and his hood, I'm sure we could all pick apart little things that, oh, that's not how I did it in my academy, or oh, I was trained differently. That's fine, that's great. But the fact of the matter is, it's the idea that he is well prepared. He's well trained. He's done this over and over. He has repetition. He knows what to do, and he understands how to do it. To be not in gear to fully in gear, on air in less than a minute is a feat within itself. Whether or not you're cheating or not, that's amazing accomplishment. So he's a very well prepared firefighter, right? He's got the appropriate mindset. He's been well trained. He's done it on his own. He's made sure to do it. Now, yes, I do see in the video again that his pants aren't great, right? His left boot's kind of showing, is showing a lot. Again, these are things that we can fix, but it's the idea of that repetition, that mindset. Okay, so this is unprepared. Now, I'm not trying to knock on any fire department, okay? But the fact of the matter is that we all have to hold each other accountable and responsible, especially when we're on a fire ground, okay? And we have to look out for each other. If you've ever watched a presentation by Mike Rowe, he does a good one that's called Safety Third, and talks about that we prioritize safety so much that people will automatically assume that everyone's prioritizing our safety, and they're not. You have to prioritize your safety. You have to make sure that it's taken care of. So that's why in his world, and I follow the same idea, that safety comes third. Okay, that I'll do the other things beforehand to make sure I'm ready to go, and then as I'm executing whatever it is, that I'm going to make sure that I'm safe, and then I'll make sure that other people are safe as well. But my safety becomes my priority. So these firefighters are unprepared. I don't know the story behind this. This is a viral video amongst fire departments. I'm pretty sure a lot of you can see what's going on already, that we're going to see why they're unprepared. I edited the video a little bit to get to this point. And we're not talking strategies and tactics. Pretty scary. Okay. These guys were trained. Again, we're not talking strategies and tactics. We're not asking why they're cutting a hole where they're cutting or what the idea was. We're talking about the fact that due to either a poor mindset or lack of training, that these two firefighters were injured. Okay. I don't know the whole story behind it. I don't know if they were hospitalized. I don't know the extent of their injuries. again, just the idea of showing that mindset and training are huge when it comes to being ready to do something. You know, it's for those of you who've gone through a firefighter academy or through any basic firefighter 1 training, we always butt a ladder, or we always have something to anchor ladder to. And these 2 firefighters unfortunately did not, and no one else prioritized their safety. You can see all the firemen that are there now. I mean, we can even count them. There's probably what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 firefighters standing around now. Plus, there's one inside. I'm not sure if you guys can see him, but there's a firefighter standing right here inside as well. So there's plenty of firefighters around that, hey, if we're all prioritizing safety, everyone's going to make sure I'm safe. But because of that mindset and not prioritizing their own safety and their own training, these 2 firefighters unfortunately were injured due to this event. So always make sure that you keep your safety in mind and that you have that mindset and are well trained. So we're going to talk about the other side of readiness that doesn't get mentioned a lot, but it is part of being ready. Okay. There's a saying out there that cleanliness is next to godliness. Okay, well, I kind of adapted that and I put cleanliness is equal to readiness. Now, having clean rigs and clean barns, making sure that we have everything ready to go gives us an advantage, because what that allows us and our crews to do, allows us not only to make sure that our units are clean and appropriate working order, but we can actually get our hands on the units. We get more familiar with it, especially for our department, right, our district, because of the fact that we are a paid per call and we are a volunteer department, that this gives us the opportunity to put our actual hands on the units themselves, to get familiar with the units, get familiar with where all the equipment is at, to understand how the compartments work. There's lots of little things on all of our units that are different. The engine at Station 72, which is my home station, where we have an engine that's totally different than the other 2 engines in our district, or how the brush truck is set up, or how Tender 72 is set up differently than Tender 73 or Tender 74 or even 273. Right? They're all set up a little bit different. They're different apparatus. They're different things. The compartments work differently. Understanding where the pony pump is on engine 72, or understanding where the reel is on Tender 73, or understanding that there is no front bumper line on engine 72, where there's one on engine 73 and engine 74. Knowing all these things, you can learn that by, number 1, going down and familiarizing yourself and having that mindset. But number 2, if you clean the unit, you get the opportunity to do that. Plus, it's a sense of pride, right? Of having pride in ourselves, pride in our units, pride in our station, pride in ourselves, of making sure that we take care of our units. So, and again, familiarizing yourself with the equipment in the station, taking pride in our units. We get to ask questions. Okay, what's like this? You know, if you're cleaning it with your captain or a senior fireman or even your battalion chief. Hey, chief, how come we have this here? What is this for? How come we have a 5-inch pony roll on this side, but then we don't have one over here? How come we only have one? Why is it, you get the opportunity to ask these questions when you're cleaning the rigs. It gives you more sense of investment into the rigs instead of just allowing someone else to do it for you. Now it becomes more personal to you. And again, that's the last part of this, is that sense of accomplishment, right? That you did that's your rig. When it goes out and it looks clean and you see it driving down the road, going on a call, if you're not on the call, you're like, man, I did that. I took the time to make sure that looks good. And it fills you with that sense of pride, that sense of accomplishment. Especially when you're standing on the side of the road or on a call on a traffic accident, and you have our law enforcement partners or, passerbys or people that are just standing, people that are standing by, they're like, man, your rig looks really good. Like, thank you. I appreciate that. I worked hard on it. It gives you that sense of accomplishment. So, and the last part of this is that you get to spend time. Again, I said that you can ask questions to your chief, your captain, your senior fireman, but it also gives you time to just talk to people. One thing that we don't do a lot here like I do at work. I work 24-hour shifts. I don't have any opportunity. I don't get away from people sometimes in my own station. I have to spend time with them. So because of that, I'm forced to work with them, and I have to figure out how to get along with these people. We don't have that here. We don't have to be with our members 24 hours a day. There are people that you just will run calls with every now and then. So if you get to spend an extra hour or two with them and really get to know who they are, then it makes things, again, more personal for you. Now you can be more invested in that person, and now they have more invested in you, and you can work better on calls together. So there's just so many opportunities that we miss if we don't take the time to clean our own rigs, our own stations, and really take that sense of pride and accomplishment in doing that. That's why at my station specifically, that's the expectation, is when you do your check every month that you are expected to clean that rig. It may not be top to bottom, it may not even gone out that month, but you at least need to give it a wipe down. So that way it stays the same way of when the last person cleaned it. So the last part, or one of the last parts I should say, excuse me, of being response ready. So remember how in the very beginning of this we said that a response is a reaction. That in order to respond, we have to be able to react, and that an emergency requires a response. But we need to be proactive responders. We can't just react whenever a call comes in, because at that point, have any of you ever just tried to react to something and you just feel like you can never catch up? Well, that's what's happening a lot of times on calls, is that it's not everybody. I'm not making a blanket statement this happens to everyone, but think about it to yourself personally. Have you ever been on a call where you just never feel like you catch up, or you just constantly you feel like you're spinning your wheels and you're trying to shift gears and you're trying to catch up and you just never get quite caught up, you never feel quite involved? Well, part of that could be the fact that we're not being proactive. So proactive means that we're taking action prior to anything happening. So how do we become proactive responders? We have to have proactive readiness. So something that I've implemented at my station is that the rigs will be ready for us to put our equipment in and be ready for us to respond. So in these two pictures, you can see my squad and my engine. So the compartments are open, the doors are open, they're ready to go, because my crews at my station understand that anytime we respond to a call, if you have turnout gear, period, I don't care if it's a medical call or whatever it is, if you have turnout gear, it's going on the rig with you, because you are a firefighter. Yes, you are an EMT, but you are also a firefighter. And we never know what's coming around the bend. If we're out on one call and something comes out, and this has happened before, where we're coming back from a medical call, coming back from something else, and a fire call pops off or a traffic accident pops off, and we don't have our gear, now we're trying to react instead of being proactive. Where if we have just taken that extra 30 seconds to put our stuff on the rig, now we can be proactive. Now we can be ready for the next call. So that's part of being response ready, is being proactive, is anticipating. I'm not going to say expect the unexpected, but we have to anticipate what's coming down the road. We know what business we're in. We're in the business of emergency response. And the emergency can be anything. So we need to take with us what we need to be ready to respond with. So again, this is how my rigs are set up. The rescue set up the same way. I didn't take a picture of that and put it in here, but the rescue set up with one or both front doors open, with the side compartment open for someone to throw in their turnouts. I'm still a firefighter here. I still have to put my turnouts. We actually went on a call earlier today. Same thing. I made sure to put my turnouts in the gear before we left. It took me an extra 30 seconds, but if something else had come out and I needed to extricate, or it was a brush fire or a structure fire, then at least I was ready. I may not have been in a fire apparatus, but I had my gear with me, and so if we needed to respond right away, I could. Okay, so be proactive. Put yourself in a position. Set yourself up for success. It's something I hear all the time. Set yourself up for success. Preparedness and planning are the path to perfection, or something like that. It's a lot of P's. I can't remember what the other one was, but just set yourself up for success. And that way, when these calls come out, you're not, oh, I don't have this, I don't have this. You're already ready to go. And that, again comes down to a mindset. So let's finally answer the question. Okay, what does it mean to be response ready? So response ready, again, becomes down to these three things that I've hammered on throughout this entire presentation: mentality, training, and being proactive. Okay, your mindset drives how you act. Just think for a second. If you're around someone that doesn't care long enough, if you're the caring person and they don't care, how long before you think it's going to be before you stop caring or before they give up? One of the two is going to happen. And unfortunately, with the way human nature is, it's more likely that you're going to stop caring because you have so much pride that you're going to be like, well, if this guy doesn't care, why should I care? And I'm not saying that's going to happen to everybody, but it does happen. Okay, so your state of mind drives your actions. If we are in a positive mindset, we want to be ready, we want to make a difference, we want to do those things, and we're not in it because, oh, well, she said this or he said that. That's great. That doesn't control me. Okay, but it's something that we need to be ready to do. Something ready to go, right? We need to be ready to respond, and we need to be proactive. We need to be positive in those things. Okay, number two is training. Again, I stole this one again from someone else. Train like your life depends on it, because it does. For those of you who've been through my academies, I've said that numerous times, right? Train like your life depends on it, because it does. Because this business and the fire service and EMS, it does depend on it. Because it could be one call that you don't go home, and we don't want that. Everyone needs to go home. So train like your life depends on it. I put this one in there. This is a mantra that I live by. Purposeful repetition is the mother of learning. A lot of people will say repetition is the mother of learning, but if you can repeat something over and over, but unless you have purpose and reason behind it, it's not going to mean anything to you. So I kind of changed it a little bit and put purposeful repetition as the mother of all learning. And then on the back side of that, awareness is the best teacher. So if purposeful repetition is the mother of learning and awareness is the best teacher, you put those two things together, again, that comes back to mentality and mindset. And be proactive. Take ownership. Take initiative. It's your rig, it's your equipment, it's your call. Be proactive and be positive about it. Obviously, I don't mean to the point where you're being, no, it's mine, you can't. No, it's still, I'm the one, this is my call, this is my rig, I'm going to take care of it, and I'm going to be positive about it. And I want other people to come in and be involved and see how I'm acting, see how positive I am, and see how much ownership I take, and then that way maybe they can do the same thing and they can take ownership. Positivity beats positivity. And you know what puts you in the mood to dance when other people are dancing is you dancing. You don't just get in the mood just by watching other people do it, because you can watch other people do something and be like, oh, that's great. But once you start trying it yourself, and because maybe you notice those people doing it and you start doing it, then it starts to become more real to you. It starts to become more personal to you. All in all, it comes down to one thing and one thing only. It comes down to the individual. It comes down to you. You have to choose to be ready. And if you make that choice to be ready, then you make that choice to have that positive mindset. You make that choice to have good trainings, be involved in trainings, to maybe organize trainings because it's something that you don't feel comfortable with. Because I've found that the more I teach, the more comfortable I become with doing something and the more I learn it. So I would recommend, if you aren't comfortable with something, go out and teach it. Repeat it over and over and over, and be aware of the mistakes you make and learn from it, and adapt and overcome. But ultimately, again, it's your choice to be ready. So I want to thank everyone, for first of all doing what you do, especially in our district. You guys are the backbone. But just be ready, and it comes down to you, is being proactive and do the training and make sure to have that good mindset. And I can't say you'll be ready for anything, but you'll be ready to work, and you'll be ready to rock and roll.